Hello everyone, this is Matthew Winkelstein. We are coming live from the ENERUM Conference 2022. I am joined by a special guest today, Denis Osowski from Babcock Wilcox. Dennis, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, thanks Matt for having me first. My name is Denis Osowski. I work in our R&D group, the technology group. It's focusing on the D part of R&D. We have a portfolio of technologies that we're trying to bring through that proverbial valley of death, trying to find the first commercial demonstration or a large demonstration for those products, and so providing a lot of commercial support to the smart tech people we have.
Awesome. B&W has a rich history, has a phenomenal legacy in the power generation space, has been around for over 100 years. I think most people would associate B&W, or at least maybe a couple years ago, more with the boilers.
Sure.
And so I know that's not what you're working on, so why don't you talk a little bit about what else B&W is trying to bring to market and where they're focused today?
Sure. Well, we're actually older. It's 150 years, so we have a bigger ship and track to try to change from. But B&W has had a long history of R&D. We've had R&D center for a long time, and we're always looking for the next thing. It's not that what we're doing now is like foreign to us. The technologies we're trying to roll out were not done by acquisition, right? We developed those in-house. There's a lot of the technologies that we have going on that they're based on the foundational principles of heat transfer and boiler and particle, material circulation, and a lot of the same commonalities that this portfolio of carbon capture and chemical looping, bright loop, oxy firing, and hydrogen firing as well. They're all not far from our base of expertise, and we have all these technologies we've developed in-house in our R&D centers. We've piloted, sub-piloted, and now we're trying to take these to the markets we know, the customers that we're familiar with, and trying to find for those portfolios, trying to find that first big demonstration opportunity.
Yeah. If you're new to this industry, you might not realize how instrumental of a role B&W had in cleaning up the environment that we live in now.
Right, yeah.
Pioneered the environmental, a lot of the environmental equipment that you saw on the back end of coal plants had already cleaned up our environment to this point. Do you want to talk a little bit about how B&W has made efforts to help clean up the environment in the past, and how some of that's helping B&W in the future?
Oh, great, yeah. We were on the forefront and worked back in the day. If we want to talk about sulfur dioxide,
yeah.
Wet scrubbers, we worked in our own R&D facility and with the University of Texas, Austin, and we're really on the front edge of all the wet scrubber technology that you see deployed on high sulfur coals and that sort of thing. That work was done starting in the 70s through the 80s, and back when that was first started, much like what we're seeing in front of us now, people were like, well, you can't do that. Like, that's never going to work. And now, how many of the coal plants that are running now have that technology on them, right? So we certainly had a big footprint in the wet scrubber market. We did a lot of those. And then also as well in the dry scrubber market. It was, we had partners, and in that particular case, we licensed the key technology. And we put ourselves out there with the experience we had in that, and in response to the Clean Air Act actions in the 70s and then in the 90s again, made a big difference. And I know the company's super proud of that. And so now, carbon and carbon dioxide, it's like the next frontier. So we're ready to go.
So it's safe to say B&W is used to doing this, right? They've helped the industry evolve before,
sure, yeah.
And now this is the next frontier of evolving. So in our executive panel, there were quite a bit of questions around hydrogen. Why don't you help people understand what B&W's focused on in the hydrogen market, and how you believe that's something that can help the industry move forward to some of these sustainability goals?
Oh yeah, well, the hydrogen component it feels like it's going to be big. It's kind of hard to overcome skepticism because we've been through how many hydrogen bubbles and excitements. We had one almost every decade, but it feels way different this time. And people actually putting a lot of money towards private sector money that's going towards actual projects. Certainly there's a lot of announced projects, but people seem to be moving ahead with this. And we have ourselves positioned kind of on both sides of that, both on the utilization side. Of course, a boiler can burn hydrogen, and it's not a hard fuel to burn. So we certainly can do that. Economics of doing that and the viability are a little bit challenging maybe, but not to say that there's not a use case out there for it, so we're ready for that. Certainly our small boilers, package boilers, they burn hydrogen all the time, and we have an experience list, and people build them, people use them. So that base is there on the utilization side, but what we're really super excited about is chemical looping platform technology. We trademarked it, BrightLoop. It's a technology that we developed with and really worked extensively with the leadership of Ohio State. That chemical looping technology was really perfected there, and we've licensed that. We licensed that technology last year, and we are full throttle on looking to deploy the first big BrightLoop project that is going to take natural gas and turn it to hydrogen, and produce hydrogen, and a much simpler approach than some of the other big commercial operations are doing, like steam methane reforming or even autothermal reforming. Super scalable, and it's the process itself provides inherent carbon capture, and so we can provide really pure CO2 streams, really pure hydrogen streams. And there's just a huge amount of advantages. And like I said, it scales really well, so you don't need to build a giant plant. If you just want to produce some hydrogen at a local site or something, you can do that. And so we're certainly trying to bring utilization to the ticket, and eventually certainly want to move beyond taking natural gas to hydrogen, because the holy grail would be to take like a solid fuel, like coal or biomass or waste fuels like pet coke, and we definitely have our eye on that. But we have all our chips in on building this demonstration unit, and really just super excited to get it out there and demonstrate its economics and its the feasibility of the technology.
Yeah. That's exciting, and you mentioned economics, and that was one of the big talking points during the executive summit, where they talked about things that maybe didn't make sense before. Now that you see the price of power continue to climb, you see the cost of gas continue to climb, I would imagine that those economic situations are starting to turn more and more to where, hey, you know what, maybe this didn't make sense 5-10 years ago, but now where the price of power is and what the current winds are, it does make a lot of sense. Are you seeing some of that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely changing, especially with regard to what people thought, especially what people thought hydrogen would cost years ago, and we're out to prove that you can produce hydrogen at a viable cost that can actually be used in industry. Make no mistake, economics are always going to be a huge factor in all this, and power prices are high. What we're really looking at, though, is the sectors where, like, maybe not so much electric generation, but sectors that are hard to decarbonize, like aviation, rail, ocean shipment, cement, steel. Like, those are places that there's really no other way to decarbonize except you have to create a different molecule. So to the extent that people are, and that society and leaders of, political leaders are willing to go ahead with the decarbonization effort, those are places where things like hydrogen are going to they're going to be game changers, because it's really probably one of the only pathways. So we're excited to be part of that, of course, and I think you're right. I think the game is changing a little bit, and certainly as more of the world starts to push a price on carbon, maybe the United States we're very market driven, right? We're hesitant to put regulatory prices on stuff like carbon, but the other parts of the world open up so many opportunities for us in that regard, and We think our technology can be economical regardless of policy, which is a primary consideration when you want to deploy a technology.
Yeah.
So especially with BrightLoop, we think that there's actual viable path forward regardless of what happens in policy. So we're pretty excited about having that kind of independence and not being, at the whim of political turmoil, as it were, right? So
yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that. And you brought up an interesting point too, because I definitely was thinking power generation, and you had mentioned some industrial customers.
Sure.
And the interesting thing, again, tying it back to that executive summit, is they were talking about how some of those customers are what's driving their behavior. Where they maybe weren't as interested in the past. Now it's, hey, these big ratepayers, they're asking for this type of technology.
Sure. Yeah, customers are driving it now, and certainly, absolutely, the investors are driving it. I mean, ESG were 3 letters you never put together maybe before like 2018 or whatever, and now it's everything. For everybody's worried about their ESG profile and how they look to investors, and investors are becoming more activist, and so I think there's more drivers than just the price of power, just what policymakers are going to put out there. So I think there seems to be a momentum building. Hopefully, we seem to be entering a kind of a dicey economic period maybe. So, kind of interested to see what that might do to energy transition and some of these other things. But right now, it seems to be kind of independent. People are still out there wanting to spend money on this, and people are interested in doing projects, and so there's no shortage of being able to get a conversation going.
Yeah.
It's still, people are really looking forward to this, and seems to be moving.
It's exciting times.
Yeah, it makes for good work. It's never boring to go to work anymore. So
that is very exciting. I want to get into why B&W is the right partner for people that are exploring this technology in a second, but you also had mentioned that B&W is focused on carbon capture. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what B&W is doing in that world?
Oh yeah, so we've got 2, if you want to focus on product technologies or technologies to go at that, we're very much into, we have, I guess you might call it traditional carbon capture. It's a solvent-based carbon capture. But the solvent that we're working with is a solvent that we worked with University of Texas in the evaluation, and we have systems that are designed and built up around this. It has a lot of advantage over typical, or I guess older MEA type, and so there's a lot of advantages to that. But it's very traditional, and the good part about it kind of being more traditional in the carbon capture sense is, it feels like a new technology, but we've been doing that amine carbon capture for a long time, and people don't know it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been around in industry for a long time, especially in the production of ethanol. People use that all the time there. So we think that that's a good card to play. We have a lot of interest in that particular technology, that particular application overseas in Europe on the back end of waste energy units. We have a large operating base of waste energy units in Europe, and all those people are Europe is pushing, and they want to do carbon capture, and there's really no inherent way to do carbon capture except to put a scrubber on the back end of it. So we think that that's a great fit back there, and we are definitely no shortage of conversations around that. The other approach to our carbon capture is BrightLoop, or chemical looping, and that's really a platform technology, and it lets us put in like a wide variety of carbonaceous feedstock, and because of how the process works, it's almost like it's a CO2 generator as its first function.
Yeah.
So it isolates all that carbon in the feedstock that you send to it, and it isolates it for however you want it, whatever you want to do with it, right? The sequestration or beneficial use or EOR or what have you in that regard. So it's real helpful it's real helpful in being so broad, and it's got a lot of application. And we're just looking to get some demonstration projects together so that we can really show it off and be able to put it out there and show its economics and technical advantages. But those are probably those are the two big areas that we're really where if you want to put something in a carbon capture bucket, that's really probably what we're looking at.
So, who's an ideal customer for B&W right now? It sounds like you're engaged in a lot of conversations. Are you working with a lot of people to develop how they solve this, or do you want them to have more of a project? Who's your ideal customer at this point?
Well, depends what technology platform we're talking about. You know, it feels like on for the solvent-based carbon capture, SolveBright, we call it SolveBright. On that particular technology, we're really focused on waste energy in Europe. Mm-hmm. That seems to have a lot of traction over there. Carbon capture in the U.S. is lagging a bit. Canada's a little bit more open to that sort of application, but primarily, so waste energy sector, and they're generating power. It's electric power generation, right? But then in other sectors, when we come back to this side of the pond, industries like pulp and paper are interested in that, or which is a traditional industry for B&W. We've had a long presence in the pulp and paper industry. Lots of PR boilers out there that big installed base there. So we're working in that, and then we're getting into other industries we haven't been into traditionally, like petrochemical, oil and gas. We have really good working relationships with a couple of the big oil majors up in Alberta in Canada, and there's a lot of activity there around BrightLoop. We have very high levels of interest from a particular oil company up there, which we're really super excited about. And then lately, we've had interest from coal country, especially out west in Wyoming. Wyoming has a big effort on now to they want to keep producing coal, and they're trying to find ways to make that happen. And we think that BrightLoop is a pathway, and so we have a lot of interest in there. And there's actually somebody willing to put in money, the state of Wyoming, in addition to other government funds and private investors. So on that end of it, there's a lot of private investment. Companies maybe you never heard of before that are doing their own development projects, and kind of just independents that are out there trying to make things happen. So there's a lot of the same and a lot that's different. I would say, like our traditional utility electric generator, there's really we still focus on them, but more our traditional thermal business to support them and make sure that they, because we'd love to, everybody would love to be able to go completely decarbonized and not burn up fossil fuel again, I guess. But, practically speaking, we're going to need fossil for a little bit while longer, and those plants need to run, and we're there to help those people. So we definitely help and work with them on that side of things. We're going to be talking later today about hydrogen firing in boilers and the extent to which that can work and what you need to do to make that work. So that's of interest to those kind of traditional utility customers. But we're really, in a lot of places, we're reaching outside of the normal base that we operated in.
And even in the utility space, that sentiment about, hey, if we could snap our fingers and make it happen today, we would all do that. But there wasn't one person that spoke today that talked about that being a near-term reality.
No.
So I think there's a lot of people that are just trying to figure it out right now.
Right. Yeah, it's a transition, and it's going to be bumpy, and everybody's the question everybody asks us is like, well, what's everything going to look like in 10 years? It's like, I don't know. Good investment might be to future-proof yourself a little bit, right? To the extent that you can do that, but it's so hard to tell where things are going to be headed at what speed, and all the reports tell you we got to go fast, right? and faster than we're going now. So, to the extent that we can be part of that, it's just a little scary, but super exciting.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. It sounds exciting everywhere that B&W is, not only where they're looking to grow, where they're still supporting the traditional customers. One of the other things that I took away from the executive presentation was, the impact of just stranding these coal assets. You know,
Yeah.
people think about the equipment, they think of that stuff. Well, they don't think about the community. And you know, the gentleman from LG&E had mentioned that, or from NIPSCO had mentioned that, you know, if you would have just taken away this industry from this area, they'd lose almost 50% of their school district.
Yeah.
So we're not just talking about leaving, these are real world problems that people are trying to solve, and B&W is helping some of those traditional customers solve that too. So if I'm a customer and I want to get a hold of you or B&W, what's the best way to be able to do that?
Well, if you're acquainted with our many, we have a lot of sales folks that work for us, of course, and so if you reach out to the person you know, or we are very, very responsive to our own website. So if you put a contact us in the website, if you don't know us or you don't have a contact, absolutely go there, because that inbox is active and we watch it all the time, and it gets parsed out to the appropriate people, and we will respond to you. There's no question. You know, or you know, to the extent, I mean, I'm happy to share my contact information, and I think, you know, anybody who's working in technology and development is happy to share theirs, and so I think those are probably the most likely pathways.
Yeah, so if you know somebody, reach out to them. If you don't know somebody, check out the website. I know Dennis is on LinkedIn, and if you're trying to figure this out, you don't quite know where to go, you're looking for a partner, what better partner could you ask for than the people that literally wrote the book on steam? So if you're, like I said, if you're trying to figure this out, reach out to someone like Dennis, reach out to B&W, and they'll be glad to help you.